So I want to talk a little bit about the book, but the first thing I want to do is I want to ask you a question. Have you ever felt like running away? Have you ever felt like running away? Have you ever gotten to a point in your life where you said, is this it, really? Is this really all there is? Have you ever gotten to a point in your life where you said, I simply cannot do this life another day? I had. If you look at this little piece of paper here, there's kind of an inside joke there. It was on my bulletin board at my last job, and it was directly over my shoulder where my boss would come in on a daily basis and ask me about updates as to projects I was working on. And I don't know if you can read it, but it says, the 5 most important things I need to do today: figure out a way out of this, figure out a way out of this, figure out a way out of this. So that kind of speaks to my mindset about what was on my mind when I was in a job and in a situation and in a circumstance where I just felt like there was so much more out there that I wasn't able to attend to. And that's really what this book is about. On the surface, of course, it's a story about a road trip with my dog, but underneath that, it's a story about freedom. It's about breaking free from circumstances or relationships or jobs or a mindset that makes you toxic. And it's about, I guess, having the courage or seizing the insanity to do something really radical to change your life. And it was, after all, Libbys' fault. She started it. So in August of 2010, our family was facing a very sad circumstance, and that was that my older brother was in the final stages of pancreatic cancer. And when he was first diagnosed, I wanted to go and do a road trip with him. As the oldest of 5 kids, my brother Don was the possessor of all the family stories, and we had a few, like every family. And when he was first diagnosed, I thought, I really want to go and do this road trip with my brother Don and go back and revisit all of the places and all the people that had shaped our childhoods. And we'd lived all over the country, in California and Texas and New Mexico. And I knew that, Don was a possessor of the stories. And I didn't seize the opportunity at the moment that I had that idea to go do this road trip with my brother. And I regretted it 11 months later, when I was literally waiting for that death call, when you're going to get the phone call from someone saying, he's gone. I was sitting out on my front porch. It was a beautiful, sunny Sunday morning, and I was drinking coffee, and Libby was sitting at my feet, and I was crying. And I was absolutely steeped in sorrow and regret that I hadn't seized the opportunity to go do this road trip with my brother. All of a sudden, Libby jumps up, goes barreling across my front yard to the edge of where my lawn leads into the neighbor's lawn, and she's barking like a mad dog. And what she wanted was this little black and white calico cat that was crouched under the boxwood bush next door, not 20 feet away from her. But she wouldn't go after the object of her most ardent desire because of the invisible fence around our yard. And she was so trained to the invisible fence that she wouldn't go across that boundary. But little did she know that the batteries in her collar were dead. They've been dead for months. If any of you have invisible fences and have dogs that are trained to those, you understand that they become so conditioned not to challenge that barrier that they won't do it for love nor money, or a calico cat. And at that moment, when I saw what she was doing, and I saw her just writhing in doggy distress, it was as if a billboard had just landed in my front yard saying, "What's your excuse, Jean? What's your story? Why won't you do the very thing that you want to do more than pretty much life itself?" And that was to be fully engaged in the life as a writer. I've been writing stories for more than 30 years for other people. I've been telling other people's stories. And I had wanted to go and do this trip, and I had wanted to write about my family. And there was not an insignificant other mystery kind of out there literally on the horizon, and that was that I had a half-brother whom I had never seen from a father, my biological father, whom I had never known. I had some baggage. That's my cowboy hat about Fort Worth, by the way. Yeah, I mean, I think we all have baggage, and I think that that's one of the things that this trip and writing the book subsequently has taught me, and that is that we all deal with hardship in our life, and most families have stories and secrets and struggles and heartache. And what I discovered in the most wonderful way is that in talking about these things, the things that you are sometimes the most ashamed of, the things sometimes that maybe you haven't really completely finished processing, but when you start talking about these things, other people come out and say, I feel that way too. And I think as artists of any kind, whether you're a painter or a writer or a dancer or a singer, I think that sometimes we express our art because really what we're looking for is that common place in someone else's heart and that shared emotion that tells us that we're not alone. So that was a great side benefit from this story. So my baggage was loss. I've lost a lot of people that I love in my life. 2 brothers and my mother. Most recently, my oldest brother, Don, who I referred to. And we either deal with loss or we don't. And I think it's a very personal thing. And we all deal with it in our own way. I will tell you that being on the road for 8,600 miles alone with just your dog gives you a lot of time for introspection. And I know it's not practical for people to do that, just take off and go do some, wild hair trip. But small minutes of introspection, I think, can be just as therapeutic. It was also about connection. So the trip was about introspection and connection. Because my family had been through some hardship. When this picture was taken, it was just 3 days after. This picture was taken in 2002. And it was just 3 days after my former husband had been arrested for a very sensational crime, and I don't mean that in a good way. It was very public. It was very difficult on me, but in particular, my kids. You can see from this photo, my youngest son was 13. So I want to read just real briefly how I dealt with kind of circling the wagons. Tiger Mama ain't got nothing on me. I seized upon a red-hot coal of truth that would burn in me from that moment forward. Now I knew the magnitude of the collateral damage he could exact. So I made a decision. I made a decision that would be my strength and the light that would, on the hill, that would lead my family out of disaster. I knew I only had so much energy and so much time. From that moment forward, every waking second I possessed would be spent helping my kids survive. It was simple. Cell by cell, the anesthesia of disbelief began to wear off, converting to full-on maternal rage that coursed through my veins like jet fuel.